Hey, welcome to another Businessology lesson. And today we're going to talk about growing with contractors. And I want to set that up for you because it's not as simple as it sounds. So when you are producing revenue in an agency, you need team to fulfill that revenue. A lot of people think that's growth, and that's not growing. Growth is typically expansion into new markets. It's sometimes taking risks. It's adding revenue sometimes that you can't necessarily fulfill. And so growing is trying to figure out your team model as you grow. But when you are just fulfilling revenue and contracts, that's really not growth. That's just producing your current profit. And so I like to explain how those things are different a lot of times. And it matters for this topic of growing with contractors because your team model, the team choice you use, matters if you're trying to grow. So if you're just fulfilling revenue, let's say you got a lot of contracts and you're gonna have a great year, you're gonna have good profit. You're going to use a team if you're large enough as an agency where you need a team and directors, creative directors, things like that. And what I like to call contractors is flex labor. So you flex into contractors because a lot of times you're doing things for clients that you may not have specific roles or teams to fulfill that revenue, but you sold it anyway because you know a whole group of great contractors, right? Those contractors we call flex labor because you're just kind of flexing into those when you need those contractors for specialty work, specialty contracts, sometimes complicated things that you don't have expertise on your team to do. You're going to flex into those contractors. So services agencies are always going to do that. You're always going to use contractors as flex labor. Now, on the other side with growth, let's say you're expanding, there's a time at which we find small design companies or small agencies, they only work with contractors. So it's the owner and only contractors. That model cannot expand and grow indefinitely because if you think about it, contractors really are running their own business. And so you don't have all the freedom to call them to all the places you do with actually team members that are on salary. So team members on salary have some level of expansion. They'll expand with the company and shrink with the company. They're there for the commitment of the future growth of the company. But a contractor has a specific role, right? It's related to the scope. You hired them to do this thing, and then they're done. And you can't, there's too much movement as you're growing. So if you have 4 contractors and it's just you as the owner, and then you add up to 8 contractors, the inefficiency and the movement of all the contracts you've got to create just to get very small transactional steps done means you can't really take in large clients and actually fulfill a lot of that revenue and grow and expand with contractors. So services agencies, they meet a limit at some point where they have to call a contractor onto their team full-time with a salary. Then you get more focus. Then you get more commitment from that team member. Then you get the ability to grow. You get to take risks because somebody's there to help you and partner with you and help you fulfill that revenue. So when you're thinking about growing with contractors, know that if you're fulfilling your current revenue, you're always going to flex probably into some level of contractor. But if you're expanding, you're going into a market, you're niching or something like that, you're eventually going to need to create a team model to grow on so that contractors are always part of that flex labor. They're not going to be part of what allows you to scale larger. That's not something that's going to work. So those are things just to keep in mind as you're producing revenue or as you're growing. Those are really 2 different things. Contractors are a flex model of labor that you do need. It's just not, you can't build a whole agency on top of a big group of contractors. Hope that helps.